I never asked my wife for intimacy again. Instead, I got back at her in the same way. She thought silence meant surrender. That was her first mistake. The second was thinking I wouldn't notice the receipts. As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, hit the hype button, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive her or walk away? My name is Lucas Bennett, and I fix power tools for a living. Not glamorous, but honest. I run a small calibration and repair shop on the south side of Chicago, the kind of place where contractors bring their nail guns and circular saws when they start misfiring. I understand mechanical problems. Things either work or they don't. There's always a reason. Marriage, I learned, operates on similar principles. The distance started in March. Jenna came home later and later, her explanations increasingly vague. Creative dinners, client brainstorms, emergency meetings. She worked as Senior Brand Partnerships Manager at Novalux Appliances, one of those smart home companies that makes refrigerators that text you when the milk expires. Her job involved managing relationships with advertising agencies, approving campaigns, signing off on budgets that ran into six figures. She was good at relationships. That was the problem. I didn't snoop, didn't need to. We shared a household account for bills and groceries, one of those joint checking accounts that married couples set up when they still trust each other. Every rideshare charge appeared on the statement, every restaurant, every late-night coffee shop. When your wife has dinner at the same upscale Italian place 3 times in 2 weeks, always on a Thursday, always charging it to a corporate card that later gets expensed through the joint account, you start seeing patterns. The amounts weren't small either. $100 dinners, $200 wine bars. Places I'd never taken her because we were supposed to be saving for a house upgrade. Then there were the photos, LinkedIn, Instagram, even Twitter. Professional accounts, public-facing, nothing hidden. Jenna standing beside Grant Nolan, creative director at Mercury & Company, the agency handling Novalux's biggest consumer campaign. His hand on her shoulder in one shot. Her laughing at something he said in another, that genuine laugh I hadn't heard in months. Hashtag teamwork, hashtag innovation, hashtag we're definitely sleeping together. I'm not stupid, I'm just patient. The physical side of our marriage had evaporated by April. She was always tired. Always stressed. Too much work pressure, too many deadlines. I stopped asking, not out of acceptance, but strategy. Every time I didn't reach for her, every time I let the silence stretch between us like a canyon, I watched her face. Confusion first, then relief, then something that looked uncomfortably like guilt. Good. Let her sit with it. By May, we were roommates who shared a mortgage and nothing else. She'd come home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, that sharp woody scent with notes of bergamot and cedar that reminded me of department store samples. She'd go straight to the shower, washing away evidence I didn't need because I already had all I needed. I'd be in my workshop, calibrating torquey wrenches, saying nothing. The printer changed everything. Jenna worked from home on Fridays. Our printer sat in the spare bedroom we used as an office, and it had a habit of jamming. The feed roller needed replacement, but I kept putting it off. I went up to fix it one Friday afternoon in late May and found a stack of abandoned printouts in the tray. Budget reports, approval workflows, payment authorizations, nothing classified, nothing she'd deliberately hidden. Just careless. Her name appeared next to Grant's across multiple vendor payments, both of them signing off on the same invoices, the same expense reports, the same creative fees. Novalux had clear policies about separation of duties, the kind of corporate governance rules that keep auditors happy and executives out of prison. Client-side managers weren't supposed to approve payments to vendors they personally partnered with on creative work. It created conflicts of interest, opened doors to kickbacks and fraud, made the finance department nervous. These signatures suggested they'd been ignoring that policy for months, maybe longer. I took photos with my phone, not of anything hidden, just what she'd left out in our shared home office. I put the pages back exactly where I found them, slightly crooked, just the way she'd left them. If she noticed someone had moved them, she'd have asked. She never did. Then I waited. June arrived with oppressive heat and a bombshell that detonated our marriage. Jenna sat me down on a Sunday morning, her face pale, her hands shaking around a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. The kitchen smelled like toast and anxiety. She was pregnant. I did the math instantly. We hadn't had intimacy since February, maybe even late January. It was now early June. The timeline didn't just fail to match. It was mathematically impossible. She watched me, waiting for an explosion, for anger, for something that would let her play the victim. I gave her nothing. "Congratulations," I said, my voice flat. She blinked. "That's it?" "What do you want me to say?" "Lucas, I need to explain." "Don't." I stood up, poured myself coffee from the French press, watched the black liquid swirl. Just don't. We need to talk about this. Do we? Seems pretty clear to me. Her face crumpled. You don't understand. I understand math. I understand biology. I understand that you've been coming home late smelling like someone else for 3 months. Lucas, save it. I walked out, went to the shop, spent 6 hours rebuilding a commercial impact driver that didn't need rebuilding. When I came home after dark, she was asleep on the couch or pretending to be. I called Claire that afternoon from the shop's back office. Claire Wilson had been my friend since college, back when she was pre-law and I was studying mechanical engineering before dropping out to start the business. Now she ran a small practice specializing in family law and contract disputes. Smart, direct, no patience for drama or self-pity. I need advice, I told her, hypothetically. It's never hypothetical when people start that way, she said. I could hear her typing in the background. What happened? I laid it out. The distance, the receipts, the photos, the pregnancy timeline that didn't work, the budget documents showing policy violations. She was quiet for a long moment. The typing stopped. You want a divorce? She said finally. I want options. Options require documentation. What you've described, the receipts and public photos, that's fine. You're allowed to notice things in your own house, in your own bank accounts. But Lucas, listen carefully. Don't hack her email. Don't install spyware on her phone. Don't put a tracker on her car. Don't do anything that crosses into illegal surveillance. That'll destroy you in court and possibly get you arrested. I won't. Good. Start separating your finances immediately. Today. Open your own account at a different bank. Stop automatic transfers to any joint discretionary funds. Keep paying your half of the mortgage and utilities. Document everything with receipts and bank statements. If she asks why, tell her you're establishing clear financial boundaries. Don't elaborate. That's it? That's the foundation. Everything else is just pressure. Controlled, legal pressure. You apply it slowly and watch what breaks. I spent the next week reorganizing my financial life. New checking account at a credit union across town. New savings account. I redirected my shop income there, left only enough in the joint account to cover exactly my half of fixed expenses. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, not $1 more. I sent Jenna an email, polite and clear, explaining the change. I CC'd myself at a separate address and saved a PDF to 3 different locations. She didn't respond for 2 days. When she finally came into the kitchen Thursday evening, her face was tight with barely controlled anger. What the hell is this? She waved her phone at me, showing my email. Boundaries, I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was processing shop invoices. By cutting off money? I'm paying my half of everything we agreed to split. Your personal spending is your responsibility. You have a job, a good one. Lucas, I'm pregnant. I know. I met her eyes, held them. Whose is it? The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. That's what I thought, I said. She turned and walked out. I heard the bedroom door slam hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. I never asked again. July turned the apartment into an oven despite the air conditioning running constantly. Jenna stayed in the bedroom with the good unit. I worked late at the shop, sometimes until midnight, recalibrating equipment I'd already fixed twice, rebuilding perfectly functional tools just to avoid going home to that suffocating silence. The separation wasn't legal yet, but it was real. I stopped doing the invisible work, all those small tasks that keep a household running, didn't buy her preferred coffee, the expensive organic blend from that place in Lincoln Park, didn't pick up her dry cleaning when I picked up mine, didn't refill her prescriptions, didn't replace the light bulb in her reading lamp, didn't unload the dishwasher if she'd loaded it. She noticed. You're being childish, she said one evening, standing in the kitchen doorway while I made myself dinner. Just myself, 1 chicken breast, 1 portion of rice. I looked up from the stove. I'm being clear. This is our marriage. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, we're just 2 people sharing space and expenses. Barely. She had no answer for that. She stood there for another moment, then retreated to the bedroom. I hired Theo Park in mid-July. He was 27, a decent graphic designer who'd answered my Craigslist ad for someone to rebuild my shop's website. The old one looked like it was made in 2003 because it was. Young guy, talented, social, plugged into Chicago's creative scene in that way people under 30 are. He'd worked freelance for a few agencies, including Mercury and Company. I didn't hire him to spy. That would have been orchestrated, obvious, the kind of thing that backfires. But people talk, especially in industries where everyone knows everyone and the gossip flows like cheap beer at networking events. Theo mentioned one day, casually, while setting up his laptop in my shop's back office, that he'd run into some Mercury people at a bar in River North. Small world, he said, adjusting his glasses. They were talking about some internal drama, something about client relationships getting too cozy. I kept my voice neutral, didn't look up from the invoices I was reviewing. That happens in agencies. Creative people, long hours, chemistry. Yeah, but this sounded messy. Compliance is apparently asking questions. Someone said they might lose the Novalux account if they can't clean it up. That'd be bad for them. Huge. That account is like 30% of their revenue. I nodded and changed the subject to color schemes for the website, but I filed the information away in the growing folder in my mind labeled leverage. The nudge came in August, delivered through a friend of a friend, 2 degrees of separation. Nothing illegal, nothing fabricated. Just the truth, strategically placed where it would grow. A former colleague of mine, Dave Kaufman, had moved into corporate purchasing at a mid-size manufacturer. We met for beers at a place near Soldier Field, one of those sports bars where the TVs are always on and nobody pays attention. He mentioned he'd heard my wife's name in a procurement discussion. Just water cooler stuff, he said, but people are saying she's been pushing for bundled approvals that blur the lines between client and vendor responsibilities. That true? I pulled out my phone, showed him photos of the printouts. The budget pages with both Jenna's and Grant's signatures on payment approvals that should have been separated. She left these in our printer at home. Public company policy says client managers and agency creatives aren't supposed to jointly approve the same invoices. Creates conflict of interest. Dave whistled low. That's a policy violation. If this gets to the wrong people in procurement circles? It probably will, I said, meeting his eyes. He understood. We finished our beers, talked about the White Sox's terrible season, and parted ways. 3 days later, Theo mentioned he'd heard the rumor had spread, not as gossip, but as a professional concern. People in adjacent industries asking quiet questions. Is Novalux's approval process clean? Are they exposing themselves to audit risk? At home, I started moving Jenna's things, not throwing them out, not destroying anything, just relocating them to the guest room with its smaller closet and north-facing window that got no afternoon light. Her books, her decorative pillows, the framed photos of us from better years, back when we went to Michigan every summer and actually smiled in pictures. I stacked everything neatly in boxes from the liquor store down the street, labeled them in black marker. As requested, space. She came home one evening, dropped her bag in the hallway, and saw the boxes stacked against the guest room door. "What are you doing?" "Giving you what you wanted," I said from the kitchen where I was making coffee. "Space, distance, independence. The same thing you've been giving me since March. Lucas, stop this." "I already have. That's the point." "You can't just..." "Can't what?" "Respond the way you've been acting? Give you the same energy you've been giving me?" She started crying then. Real tears, not manipulation. She sat on the couch and sobbed, saying she'd made mistakes, that she was confused, that she didn't know what she wanted, that everything was complicated. I sat across from her in the armchair, silent, until she finished. I didn't offer tissues, didn't offer comfort, just waited. "I'm not angry," I said finally, my voice level. "I'm just done asking." "Asking what?" "For you to choose me, for you to come home on time, for you to remember you're married, for intimacy, for honesty, for anything." She tried to respond, but I stood up and went to the workshop. I had a drill press to calibrate, a task that would take 3 careful hours and require all my attention. Grant stopped answering her calls in late August. Theo mentioned it casually, something he'd overheard at another industry event, one of those rooftop networking things where people drink wine and pretend to care about synergy. The creative director was suddenly distant from the Novalux account, delegating meetings to junior staff, avoiding client dinners. Jenna tried to hide her panic, but I saw it. She checked her phone constantly, every few minutes, that anxious tick of someone waiting for a response that won't come. Left voicemails that went unreturned, sent texts that stayed on read for hours, then days. One night, past 11, she came into the workshop where I was refinishing a workbench I'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. "He's not answering me," she said quietly. I didn't look up from the sander. Maybe he stopped asking too. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. She stared at me. I could feel her trying to decode the statement, trying to figure out if I knew, how much I knew, what I planned to do with the knowledge. I gave her nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no emotion at all. "You're enjoying this," she said. I'm just speaking your language. You taught me the vocabulary, distance, silence, plausible deniability. She left. I heard her crying through the walls until past 2 a.m, then nothing. September arrived with cooler air and a plan that had been building in my mind like a blueprint, each piece carefully measured and fitted. Claire had explained the mechanics over lunch at a diner near her office. If unreported personal relationships affected financial decisions, particularly budget approvals and vendor payments, that was grounds for internal review. Not criminal necessarily, but career-ending. Companies hated liability. Agencies hated losing clients. People caught in the middle got crushed between millstones. You don't need to file anything explosive, she'd said, picking at her salad. You just need to make the facts visible to the right people. HR departments are risk-averse. They'll investigate anything that smells like a compliance violation. And if they find something? Then the consequences are natural. You didn't fabricate anything. You didn't lie. You just illuminated what was already there. I assembled the packet over 3 careful evenings. Copies of public photos from LinkedIn and Instagram, printed in color. Household receipts from our shared accounts showing repeated dinners at the same restaurants. The dates highlighted. The budget printouts Jenna had left in our printer showing both her name and Grant's on approval pathways that clearly violated Novalux's stated policy on separation of duties. Nothing hacked, nothing stolen, nothing obtained through illegal surveillance. Just what adults had carelessly left in plain sight, assuming nobody was paying attention. I made 3 copies, each one bound with a black binder clip, each one containing a typed cover sheet explaining the concern in neutral, corporate language. The first copy went to Maya Ortiz, head of HR and compliance at Novalux. I mailed it old-fashioned paper mail in a manila envelope with no return address. Inside was a typed note on plain white paper. Policy requires disclosure of personal relationships affecting financial decisions. These documents suggest disclosure may not have occurred. Recommend review of approval workflows and vendor payment authorizations for compliance with separation of duties requirements. The second copy went to Grant's home address. I found it through public property records, nothing illegal. I included a sticky note in blue ink. Disclosure cures most conflicts. Delay ruins careers. A concerned colleague. The third copy I kept in a safety deposit box I'd opened at a bank across town, along with copies of everything else. Claire helped me draft an intent-to-file letter for divorce. We didn't file it yet, just prepared it. Got all the language right, all the legal formulations. I put a copy in the safety deposit box. At home, I changed the locks. Called a locksmith, paid cash, had it done while Jenna was at work. Not to keep her out permanently, but to give myself control. I had new keys made and put hers in a combination lockbox, the kind people use for house showings, and left it on the kitchen counter with a note written in my neatest handwriting. When you're ready to talk about next steps without lawyers, the code is our anniversary. Take your time. I also found something else around this time. A handwritten note in Jenna's planner, the expensive leather one she carried everywhere. She'd left it open on the dining room table one morning while she showered. Her handwriting, unmistakable with its looping letters. I'll leave him for you. Just say when. We can figure out the rest together. I didn't touch the planner. I took a photo with my phone, emailed it to myself, printed it on plain paper, and left the printout on the kitchen counter beside the lockbox, weighted down with her coffee mug. She came home that evening around 7, saw it, and the color drained from her face like someone had opened a valve. Lucas, I'm not asking questions, I said from the living room where I was reading a repair manual. I'm just showing you what I see. Where did you get... You left it out, on the table, just like everything else. You've been careless, Jenna, about a lot of things. She tried to speak, mouth opening and closing, but I walked past her into the workshop and closed the door. I heard her making phone calls, urgent whispered conversations, the kind where you can't make out words, but you know someone's begging. The call from Theo came 3 days later, Wednesday afternoon. Hey, something weird is happening at Mercury. They pulled Grant Nolan from the Novalux account entirely, like immediately. Effective yesterday. People are saying HR got an anonymous complaint about ethics. About what specifically? Conflict of interest. Undisclosed relationship with a client manager. The agency is doing an internal investigation. This could blow up huge. Novalux is asking questions, too. That sounds serious. It is. The agency is freaking out. If they lose Novalux over this, they'll have to let people go. Grant's basically radioactive right now. I thanked him and hung up, then sat in my truck in the shop parking lot for 10 minutes, thinking about timing. That night, Jenna didn't come home. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't check her location. I made myself dinner, watched a documentary about the Apollo program, went to bed early, and slept better than I had in months. She returned the next afternoon, Thursday, her face exhausted, makeup gone, wearing the same clothes as the day before. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the note I'd left out, the one in her own handwriting, promising to leave me. "Grant won't see me," she said quietly. "Smart man," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Lucas, please, I need help." "With what?" "Everything. Work is asking questions. HR wants to meet with me tomorrow. Grant won't answer my calls or texts. I don't know what to do." "That's not my problem anymore." She looked at me, really looked, and I saw the moment she understood. I wasn't going to save her. Wasn't going to fix this. Wasn't going to make it easier. I'd given her exactly what she'd given me for 6 months. Distance, silence, consequences. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "You made choices. Plural, repeatedly. Every late dinner, every lie, every time you came home smelling like someone else and went straight to the shower." She started crying again, big gasping sobs. I didn't comfort her. I poured myself coffee, added cream the way I liked it, and went back to the workshop to finish rebuilding a cordless circular saw. The final piece fell into place on a Thursday evening in late September. I got a call from the concierge at Grant's building, a high-rise in the West Loop, the kind of place with a parking garage and private storage cages and a gym nobody uses. A package had been delivered to my shop by mistake, addressed to Mercury and Company but with my business label on it. Some confusion with the delivery service. Could I come pick it up? I said I'd be there within the hour. Grant lived in one of those new buildings that looks like a glass stack of boxes, all clean lines and expensive emptiness. The concierge, a young guy named Eric who looked fresh out of college, met me in the lobby with the misdelivered box. Small, lightweight, probably marketing materials. "Sorry about the mix-up," he said. "No problem. Actually, since I'm here, can I just drop this in his storage cage? I know Grant from work, and I don't want to bother him upstairs." "Sure, I can walk you down." Eric took me to the elevator. We rode down 2 levels to the garage, that underground concrete world that smells like exhaust and stale air. The storage area was a grid of chain-link cages, each one padlocked, filled with the overflow of lives too big for their apartments. Eric checked his list, found Grant's cage number, and unlocked it. "Just leave it inside," he said. "I'll text him to let him know it's here." "Thanks." Eric left. The elevator doors closed. I stood there in the fluorescent hum of the garage, holding the box, thinking about timing and symmetry, and how everything was about to converge. I pulled out my phone and texted Jenna from my regular number. "Need to talk about next steps. Meet me at Grant's building parking garage in 1 hour. Address is 1547 West Madison, level B2. Important." Then I pulled out the burner phone I'd bought 3 weeks ago, cheap prepaid from a gas station, and texted Grant. "Jenna is pregnant. Novalux Compliance knows everything. Mercury knows. We need to talk before this gets worse. Parking garage at your building. 1 hour." I set the misdelivered box inside the storage cage. Then I pulled out the packet I'd been carrying in my truck. The 3rd copy, the one I'd kept. I placed it on top of the box, clearly visible. Then I closed the cage without locking it. I walked to my truck, parked 1 level up where I could see the elevator but stay out of direct sight, and waited. Grant arrived first, exactly 52 minutes later. He looked nervous, checking his phone every few seconds, glancing around like he expected cameras or cops. He walked to his storage cage, saw it was unlocked, and paused. He opened it slowly. I'd left the packet right there, bound and obvious. The photos on top, visible through the plastic sleeve. Him and Jenna at dinner, at a conference, at a bar. Her note in her handwriting. "I'll leave him for you." He picked it up, flipped through it. I watched his face change from confusion to recognition to something like fear. The elevator dinged. Jenna stepped out, looking around, nervous and confused. She saw Grant, and her face showed relief, then concern when she registered his expression. She walked toward him. "Grant, what's going on? Lucas texted me to come here." He held up the packet without speaking. She stopped walking. "What is that?" "Everything," he said, his voice hollow. "Photos, receipts, budget approvals, your note." I got out of my truck. My footsteps echoed on concrete. They both turned. "Lucas," Jenna said, her voice rising. "What are you doing?" I ignored her. I walked straight to Grant and handed him a 2nd copy of the packet, this one sealed in a clear plastic sleeve with a typed label, "For your records." "You don't need to answer me," I said, my voice level and cold. "You need to answer her and HR and probably a lawyer." I never asked again. I just gave back what I got. Grant's face drained of color. He looked at Jenna, then back at me, then at the packet in his hands like it might explode. "This is blackmail," he said. "It's public information. Household receipts from shared accounts, photos you both posted on professional networks, documents left in my home printer, nothing hacked, nothing stolen, just what you left lying around, assuming nobody was paying attention." Jenna stepped forward, reaching for my arm. "Lucas, please, let's talk about this privately." I stepped back. "We're talking now. In the same language you taught me. Distance, silence, consequences." Grant's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and whatever he saw made him close his eyes and sag against the storage cage. "I have to go," he said to Jenna. Not kind, not apologetic, just flat and final. "Grant, wait, we can figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out. HR called. They want me in tomorrow morning with legal representation. My boss just texted that I'm suspended pending investigation." "But I can explain." "Explain what?" His voice rose, echoing off concrete. "That we violated disclosure policies, that we approved payments we had personal stakes in, that you're pregnant and your husband just delivered proof of everything to everyone who matters." Jenna flinched like he'd hit her. "I can't be associated with this," Grant continued, and now I could hear the edge of panic in his voice. "Mercury is already talking about terminating my contract. Novalux might sue. My career is over." "You said you loved me." The words hung in the cold garage air. Grant laughed, a bitter sound. "I said a lot of things. In the moment. When it was fun and secret and didn't have consequences." He looked at her, and there was nothing in his eyes. No love, no regret, no warmth. Just self-preservation. "I'm sorry. I can't help you. I have to protect myself." "Grant, we're done. Completely. Don't call me. Don't text me. If anyone asks, we were professional colleagues and nothing more." He walked to the elevator and pressed the button. Jenna stood frozen, watching him abandon her. The elevator arrived. Grant stepped in without looking back. The doors closed. The silence that followed felt like pressure, like the air before a storm. Jenna turned to me, tears streaming down her face, makeup running black. "Lucas, please." I pulled her car fob from my pocket, the one I'd been holding for months because I was always the one who took her car for servicing, who handled the maintenance, who kept things running while she was busy destroying us. I placed it on the concrete between us. It clattered in the silence. Then I pulled the lockbox key from my other pocket. "The new house keys are in the lockbox on the kitchen counter," I said. "The code is our anniversary, August 14th. Ironic, I know. "Don't do this. Please. I'll fix everything. I'll quit my job. You'll what? Uncheat? Unlie? Make that baby mine?" She sobbed, her whole body shaking. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I stopped asking for anything from you months ago. Remember?" I turned to walk away. "Lucas?" I stopped, looked back one last time. She looked small in the harsh fluorescent lighting, diminished, like something already disappearing. Her expensive work clothes rumpled, her face destroyed, her hands shaking. All that confidence, that entitled certainty that she'd always be the most important person in any room, gone. "We're speaking the same language now," I said quietly. Then I walked to my truck, got in, started the engine, and drove up the ramp into the cool September evening. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there, alone in the fluorescent glare of level B2, surrounded by concrete and the echo of her own choices. I didn't look back again.